Good Sunday morning. I'm Jaden Jefferson, and welcome to this week's Community Focus. This week, the Board of Lucas County Commissioners passed the county's 2025 budget, but the process wasn't a cakewalk. I spoke to County Commissioner Lisa Sobecki to learn more. Of course, a lot of the major services the county provides funded through this budget. So kind of speak to the process in budgeting for the county and what challenges came up during that process.
No, thank you. And it's a great question. What we did as the commissioners for the first time in what I learned many years, so you could really say this is the first time we've done it, is that we held hearings for the budget. But first, before we held the hearings, we asked everyone. We met with all the electeds and all the different areas and said, hey, listen, it's going to be tight next year, and we need everyone to please, have a flat budget. And so some of our row offices and others, were able to live up to that challenge, and others found it challenging. And so what we did is we had budget hearings, and multiple budget hearings went on through this process. So this gave, I can speak for myself, gave me an opportunity to ask questions and listen to the presentations. I think it was amazing to really allow the different departments to be able to talk about the good work that they do on behalf of the county. We know internally what they do, but externally to your viewers and the constituents that we serve, sometimes they don't really understand what particular departments do and the challenges they have. So I think that's great that we continue to have that conversation in the community. And then from that, then we kind of put back into our administrative staff some things that they heard from that, and we're to be able to adjust budgets or kept people flat like we had requested. So I'll give you an example. Treasurer Webb came in and presented. She did have a flat budget, but she showed that she had pay increases that she was going to be able to give out to her staff. She's able to do that within her budget, and she actually reduced staff as well. So she kept her budget flat, at the same time reduced staff, at the same time was able to give pay raises to her staff. That's great. That's wonderful. You're working within your budget confines to be able to do what you wish to do.
You mentioned that things were going to be tight for 2025. So kind of expand on that. What are some of the challenges in that area where there's not some revenue that may be available in order to fund certain things?
Sure, which is another great question. We have more expenses that are happening than revenues coming in. And so, and we, our community's heard, for example, what's happening with Jeep, the 1,100 employees there that have been told that they're going to be indefinitely laid off. And then we've also heard from the suppliers, Kuka and Mobus, that they're going to be laying people off. So our revenue comes in predominantly from sales tax. And so with people that are going to be indefinitely laid off, then they're going to be having to make some decisions at home on their family budgets. Are we going to take a vacation as a family, spending money in Lucas County or the state? Or are we going to stay home? Are we going to go out and potentially buy that new car, or are we not? So that is something. We don't have the fourth quarter. These layoffs, some of them are going to be taking place at the first of the year. So we don't know until fourth quarter is done. We're kind of projecting, but really what the holiday shopping is going to be like in Lucas County or not. And we'll find that out. Probably we'll hear what those numbers are, in the month of January, first part of February, how fourth quarter ended up. But then we also will start looking at the first quarter of 2025 on what the impacts into our community from, say, the layoffs from Jeep and the suppliers.
So in terms of the local economy, it's obviously going to be important to have that diversified economy, which can kind of lessen the impacts when you have layoffs happen like at Jeep. And so what work does the county do to recruit more business to the area? Because, of course, for years, Toledo has been a manufacturing city, but we are starting to face more challenges with regard to layoffs. And like you mentioned, that does affect the revenue when people may not have the money to spend.
Sure. And I'm gonna add one more thing onto your other question, and then I'll hit this question. The other thing though, too, is our healthcare. There's a 7% increase that's, happening on healthcare. We all know that there's rising costs with healthcare. So we're projecting that as well, just watching the trends and what's happening. But back to your question though, that you're asking is that we have an amazing team that a couple of months ago that we announced that we have our economic development team. So they're really charged with going out and talking with say for example, existing folks that have businesses here and asking them, what are your needs? Are you looking to stay, expand, or leave? Some of those are the questions to get a really good feel, but then also finding out, that their yarder not too long ago said, hey, we're going to expand. They're a 5-generation company here, and they're going to expand. So, what assistance do you need on that expansion? Is it our workforce to bring them up to the needs that need to be met for their company, and how we work with our economic development and workforce development team to be able to meet those needs? But then also working with RGP because they also will hear potential companies are going to want to come into Lucas County, and what are their needs? Is it infrastructure? Is it workforce? So being able to meet those. So if we can get, companies to move in, companies to stay here, companies to expand, this will also be able to help us with our revenues. We've heard a lot in the news about data centers. And so I know that there's some conversations around. I know data centers are looking to come here to Lucas County, which will be great. That will be putting a workforce working for 8 to 10 years, building data centers, maintaining data centers. And so that's also another revenue resource that we can have within our community.
And obviously, there is the part of government where even despite the revenues, you still have to spend money for certain things and end up having to maybe overspend a little bit. Is there a chance that that could be the case with 2025's budget?
Well, I will say this is in any public, budget, be it Lucas County, be it the city of Toledo, be it Sylvania, be it Monclova, or even your school districts, in public entities, personnel is a good portion, should I say, of your budget. And so, but also, we also know that our personnel are some of the most amazing workers that we have doing some very, very tough jobs out there. And they also, when you have, rising costs at the grocery store, or rising costs on goods out there for them to be able to go purchase, they also need a rise within their pay structure, though, too. I can't ask, our staff to um, do more with a lot less. They have families to feed. Those are our constituents that live in our county as well. So we have to that's really a balancing act. And we were able to do that within the Lucas County Commissioners and our departments. We have been able to give them a 3% raise with $1,000 one-time lump sum check. But we would like to give them more. Absolutely, we do. I think that they deserve that, but be able to find that within our budget. So we're really going to have to look at in 2025, looking at 2026, because that's where my mind is already at, is at 26, 27 and beyond. Is where do we tighten up at? How do we think differently? Do we stay the status quo, or do we look outside the box of those ideas? And it's really going to be a group effort. It's not just the county commissioners doing that. It is my over in the courts. It's working with the sheriff. It's working with the prosecutor's office. It's working with all those row offices. We all are going to have to face this together, and we're all going to have to come up with solutions together. But the other piece is I'm looking at soon after the first of the year, Governor DeWine will give his operating budget to the General Assembly to make decisions around, in which they have to pass by June 30th. And just making sure, because he sent the message also at the state level to keep a flat budget. And what does a flat budget mean and how that's going to be reflective on us? And so we really have to stay in tune to that and look at, say, for example, local government funds, not to cut those local government funds. For the past 16 years, we've been cut, and that's been $100 million loss to Lucas County's budget.
Wow. And I mean, speaking to just the other parts of this budget, what would you say are some things that went pretty well in this process? Obviously, overall, it's tougher because you're working with less, but there is, of course, some things that you may have to change around and other areas may be getting new life. So is that the case in some parts of the budget?
Well, I will say, for example, in our courts, they are implementing the Tyler system, and that's, putting everything through electronic means, should we say. So that's going to be some helpfulness to us once that's all completely uh, brought up to speed and everyone's working efficiently. That's going to take a little time to do that as technology. But also, I've had the great pleasures of working with Judge Goulding, for example, for the Court of Common Pleas, and to be able to have some conversations, and even our juvenile courts, and to have some conversations that we're going to continue in 2025 to come together to look on some ways that we can look at our budget, have some budget savings, and just having those partnerships, I think, is going to be critical for the county commissioners, not just with the courts, but all across the board with all of our row offices. And so I think that we're going to be able to get there. It's going to be a little tough, but our job is sometimes to have to say no, and that's difficult sometimes. But having partners alongside with us is to come up with solutions to the problem. It's one thing to complain and have no solutions. To me, you're just complaining. We need partnerships all across the board that are helping us come up with solutions. And I think we're going to get there. So something that I would like to try next year is really having on our side to keep us up to date from OMB on what we are doing, how our budget is, but also is having continued those conversations, maybe on a quarterly level with our other elected officials to let them know where our budget is.
Yeah, no one said it was easy climbing out of a pandemic, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Sobecki, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and have a great start to the week on Monday.